Before this video starts, I just want to give a massive thank you to the Project Gungame community. They have been a massive help for this project with my research, and without them this video seriously would not have been possible. Credit is done where credit is due at the end of this video. Almost everyone who grew up in the 2000s with a computer knows about Flash games. The fundamental program by the software company, Adobe, Flash was one of the internet's most important programs that helped shape the internet into what it is today. Flash was responsible for the creation of so many animations you see on places such as Newgrounds, and it was even used by YouTube as the way to run videos. But personally, I see the nostalgia kick in with Flash games. Almost every young person on the internet has played a Flash game at some point, whether you were 12 years old on Newgrounds in 2008, or even 12 in 2019 playing on unblocked games websites. Along with different generations all playing these same games came timeless classics, such as the Henry Stickmin games and The Binding of Isaac, which are all still relevant to this day as the entirety of the Henry Stickmin series was remastered, and so has The Binding of Isaac with Rebirth, which just as recently as March 2020 got its newest update, making its content well over double the size of the original Flash game. However, most of these games were never big enough to get this treatment after the infamous shutdown of Flash on December 31st of 2020. Fortunately, most of these games had luck with third-party Flash support, with Newgrounds Flash Player and Ruffle, which however sometimes is not perfect, it's still always being worked on. I say most of these games because there are a number of unfortunate cases where not even the Flash players can correctly preserve these games, and the ones I'm specifically talking about are the online multiplayer Flash games. We've seen this in cases like Club Penguin, even a few years before the plug was pulled on Flash. However, Club Penguin had a massive reputation to millions of people, which meant that many teams of programmers and Club Penguin fans came together to create launches such as Club Penguin Rewritten, a fully faithful preservation project that still has an active community with original updates being made by the development team. But what happens when a game with the same shutdown fate doesn't have nearly the fanbase size just to instantly remake the game right after the shutdown? I've honestly never been a big Club Penguin kid, but I'd like to introduce Project Gungame, a 2D platformer shooter game which was one of my favorite online games growing up. Even one of my oldest YouTube videos was me playing it when I was still a family-friendly gaming channel. Project Gungame was something I moved on from after middle school, but one day I was curious to see how it was doing, and to my surprise, it was long gone and shut down. It's always a sad feeling leaving something you used to love and coming back times later to see that it's been long gone. But after doing a little research, I discovered that the game was actually being remade by passionate players. So as a celebration to this game's life and community, I will be answering these questions. Who created Project Gungame? Why was this game so fun for many? What led to the game's shutdown? And what efforts are being made to bring this game back to life? As well as uncovering so much more information about the life and history of its community. So sit back, relax, press play on your jukebox, and put on your jetpacks. I'm your host, Whaleskin McFactoid for Forgotumentaries, and please, enjoy the video. The creator of Project Gungame is a person who goes by the online name Chaz. Chaz is a game developer from London, England who made online Flash games, as well as the creator of the website multiplayer.gg, a website made specifically for online multiplayer Flash games. His beginnings with multiplayer.gg started with the game Tiny Tanks, released on August 15, 2011, with a promotional YouTube video released on September 2nd, 2011, under Chaz's old YouTube channel. Tiny Tanks was an online multiplayer PvP game where you would drive around in a tank and shoot projectiles at other players on unique maps that Chaz provided, as well as a map creator where you could upload maps for others to play. The rules of the game modes were simple: survive as you attack other tanks and the final tank standing wins. Originally, this was a single page site where it was the Flash player for Tiny Tanks, and as you would scroll down, it would show a welcome message for the game written by Chaz. And as you scroll down even more, it would show update logs, Statistics were also shown under the Welcome tab, which the earliest capture of the website on June 2nd showed that there were no players online, but over 6,000 maps were created and 27,000 accounts were made. In just a 2-year span for a simple indie Flash game, that was quite impressive. And just because the website was shown to not even have a single player online, it didn't mean that there was literally nobody playing. One part of Tiny Tank's reaching popularity was due to the fact that other game sites were hosting the game and the servers to play on their website. With the creation and history of his other games, this isn't much different. He created other games such as Tiny Planes, another game with the same rules as Tiny Tanks, but as the name implies, it's with planes, and an online version of Rock, Paper, Scissors. These games wouldn't reach up to the popularity as Tiny Tanks, but it had the same exposure, being plastered across bigger game websites. But right before these two games, Chaz would create a game unlike the other two, and would prove to expand so much more too. In early 2014, the main page of multiplayer.gg was updated, where under the game player, text would appear. This was a promotion that said, "Hello Tank Commanders, enjoy Tiny Tanks? Click here to try my latest game." Clicking the website would lead to Chaz's newest game at the time, Project Gungame. Project Gungame was most likely released in November 2013. It was played as a PvP 2D shooter platformer game with many different weapons, including a variety ranging from SMGs to rocket launchers, to even plasma sci-fi guns. What made this game unique was its use of jetpacks and boots. Jetpacks, of course, let you fly around the map, but were balanced with a limited amount of regenerative fuel and fall damage. And boots allowed you to change your speed and jump stats. All of these weren't just usable right off the bat, however, as there was a level up system up to level 30. Every level you would receive an unlock point, and a lock point would allow you to unlock guns, jetpacks, or boots. It's also to note that there was a limit to how many times you are allowed to level up a day. This would convince players to come back daily to see what new stuff they can unlock by playing further. The controls were you would use your mouse to aim and shoot, allowing for shots in 360-degree freedom, which added so much more depth in how combat was played. Similar to Tiny Tanks, the game allowed for custom maps that would be uploaded and shared with other players. Unlike Tiny Tanks, however, the fundamental rules weren't just stuck as last player standing wins, as there were different game modes such as Team Deathmatch, where whichever team got the most kills would win after a time limit or by reaching a kill goal, and Capture the Flag, where two teams would be placed at points and whoever can grab the enemy's flag and bring it to their own teams without getting killed would gain a point. Whichever team got the most points in this game mode would win. The earliest recorded archive of the Gungame site was back on July 7th, 2014 via the Wayback Machine. Shown on the site was just update logs and a to-do list at the bottom, showing ideas that would eventually be added such as game modes. The earliest update was on November 27th, 2013. This update, teams were added to gameplay, as well as spawn points. It wouldn't be too off to say that at the beginning of the game in November 2013, that the game didn't have its final sprites yet. This is evident by the to-do list. Later the same month, on the 24th, the earliest video of Gungame can be found on YouTube. This video was called Swaglord 1995, Let's Play Project Gungame version 9, uploaded by Karamita9. Examining the video, we can get an idea of how developed the game was compared to a more modern version. First of all, we can see that account settings were functional, with the option to also just play the game as a guest with no save data. Next, Karamita plays a tutorial for new players and quickly pulls up the Armory tab. At this point of the game, there are already a decent list of weapons available to unlock and buy, but jetpacks and boots were more on the lacking side, with each having less than 5 options. I believe this was the amount of equipment the game would see in its life, where in the future there would be more guns added. It's worth mentioning that the environment sprites were ripped from the sprite sheet called Generic Platformer Tiles, created by Carl Olsen, aka Cert, who is credited for the game's work. The sprite sheet currently shown is what was used, and all other platform sprites in the game are original edits. Other things to mention before he moves on from the tutorial is the interface. Here shown there's a chat bar, gameplay settings button to the left, and a jukebox to the right. The jukebox was one of the coolest things in the game, as it would quickly pop up a YouTube URL into the chat, and it would begin to play for the entire lobby, which sometimes did get chaotic as that sounds. The main menu never made many changes except for the one that can be easily recognized by most familiar players. This is that the clan button wasn't added yet, which was one of, if not the biggest feature in the game's history that we will get to in a bit. Other than this, the game looks very identical even to the later years of the game's life. The art style has always been one of my favorite parts of the game. I can't see it being something that could have just been indefinitely better, unless it's just small detail improvements, as the style just fits well. However, the other factors of the game had such unlimited ways to improve the quality. But unfortunately, Chaz kind of never did that, except he kind of did at the same time. But this wouldn't be a core gameplay edition, but it would be one that impacted the community and pushed for the evolution and growth of it. On October 2nd, 2014, a new update was released that added a new feature called clans. Clans were basically groups that you could join with a bunch of other members. The features included its own chat there, so you didn't have to be in a game to talk to others, and a clan level up system where you could gain XP for the clan, which the higher level a clan would be, the more decals you would be able to use for the clan emblem, very similar to Call of Duty. The first ever clan to be created on Gungame was called United Elites by the player Lucky Dino, who in later game history would become a very well respected member in the community. Other early established clans at the time were Sons of Gallifrey, or SOG for short, and Ho Kago Tea Time, better known as Kaon. Even in the starting era, there were a handful of popular clans that got up to 50 members at the time, before a month had even passed with the clan update. Project Gungame at this point became more than an arcade-style game, where you would just join random matches and play to win. Project Gungame was becoming a community-led game where people were finding even more fun ways to build new types of mini-games together. Such examples are parkour, where the jetpacks made this so much more fun, allowing for players to make tricky platforming stunts, and role-playing, where players would just hang out without combat and, well, just roleplay. In an interview with Ninja X147, who was the leader of the biggest clan in Gungame's history, Ninja's Creator Squad, which reached level 55, shared some fond memories of this era he had with the community. He shared memories of two players named Bree Gamer Girl and Ally Gamer Girl, who he recalled to be very popular players for the small community. This was due to how nice they were to everyone and enjoyable to talk to. In December 2014, just 2 months after the clans were implemented, Gungame would receive another historical moment for its community, leading from an already close-together community into its booming golden age. A player named Dragon X would be hanging out with his close friend who went under the username Captain Slendy. They were originally going to play Chaz's other game, Tiny Tanks, together. However, Dragon's game wasn't loading, so he decided to play Gungame instead and brought Slendy with him. Dragon would become an influential clan leader for his clan, the X-Dragons, which would reach level 45 in its lifetime. Captain Slendy would become a legend right along with him, as he was a popular player who made friends with most of the community. Along with making his notable clan Slenderly Goodness, he also was a creator of many popular maps, which the majority were minigames or decoration orientated. His biggest map hit was called Glitch School, which put itself on the third most favorited map in the entire game. But before they would achieve their biggest accomplishments in later 2015, they were still respected in early 2015, which many veteran players call this time era the peak of the Golden Age. Along with Dragon X and Slendy having their uprising, the community was still striving more each day. Clans were a more established staple in the game, as it was essential for any player wanting to go big, whether combat or power-wise, needed to be in or have their own clan. More dominating clans were rising, such as Steel City Ice Renegades and SCF, by another well-known player, Godlike. With so many big and powerful clans around, not everything was so peaceful in a power-hungry era. 2015 would be the year with the most community drama, such as Clan Wars, where it's not a game feature as it may seem, but it was more malicious. These conflicts would usually end up with clans being taken over or hacked and being completely destroyed from the inside. Most of the time, if clans were big enough, they would usually recover, but big examples such as the Hogs clan that was popular in early 2015 was raided in May of 2015 and caused the clan community for the most part to die. Truly no player was safe. A rise of hackers also began to appear, where they would join games and give themselves unlimited ammo and no delay for shooting on their guns. So weapons like the rocket launcher would be shot instantly. Most of these hackers didn't do much harm to players besides ruining the fun of the matches, but there were still just plain toxic players who started in 2015. The most infamous example is the player Lumpy, who was notorious for being a terrible part of the community. Most of the time he would join random games just to troll people by spamming racist or homophobic slurs, as well as being known as a backstabber, and always wanted to pick fights with even bigger clan leaders. Lumpy was even the reason why Bree and Allie both quit the game. All these events were happening simultaneously within the community, which really shows how much really happened in just a year's span. Of course there's a lot more clans and players I missed out, but this video would be extremely long if I just went over every major event of 2015. It's just that much history. Moving on to the end of 2015, we're back to December where Dragon created the X-Dragons clan, which was probably the last big event that happened in 2015. And quickly moving on, in 2016, we saw one of the last legendary players to join the game, under the username Sky the Kid R5, which was inspired by YouTuber Sky Does Minecraft. Beginning with his first word simply being, "How do I move?" Captain Slendy quickly took Sky under his wing and taught him the core basics of the game, such as PvP and building maps, as well as other complex things such as how to perform glitches. Slendy and Sky at this point became very close friends, playing together every day, and it inspired Sky to create over 150 maps, with his most popular called Capture Te Flag, which got 113 favorites. On May 20th, 2016, we would see one of the last biggest moments in the peak of Project Gungame, with the X-Dragons clan reaching the top of the clan tab. After this in mid-2016, the game's golden age would come to an end, leaving for the game's downfall, where it would never truly recover again. Leading on through 2016, the game would only seem to be going more downhill with player counts decreasing, losing more than half of its previous relevancy, and this was with an unfortunate valid reason. The biggest reason why is because Chaz himself, as he rarely put time into the game at this point. This became evident on April 8th, 2016, when Chaz released a new game of his own called Bonk.io. It was his own creation of the .io genre that were all online multiplayer games. It was a fairly simple platformer with a basic concept. You're a bouncy ball and your goal is to push and bump other players into the out of bounds or hazard zones to eliminate them. Honestly, it's a pretty fun little game that doesn't get boring easily, as Chaz's map editing features return to this game as well. Soon enough, Bonk.io would receive a lot of attention, as 2015 and 2016 was when the IO craze was really taken off, with other famous games like Agario and Slither.io gaining millions of players. Chaz finally struck gold with this game and decided to run with it, which unfortunately meant for the fans of his other games, he would basically neglect these titles. And on June 20th, 2016, we saw the last ever update to Project Gungame. This last update was only a couple of bug fixes with no new additions to gameplay. The community, bored with its own game, had many players even quit it entirely, or still held on to the game with hacks, which made genuine players lose their fun. It was also reported a lot during the times after the final update. The jukebox feature and even account functionality would break often, leaving them unusable. The breaks would occasionally get fixed, but only for at most a week or two before they would completely go back to being unusable. This is basically how the game would go from 2016 to 2020, when the final nail in the coffin for this dying game was finally struck. In July of 2017, Adobe officially announced that on December 31st of 2020, Flash Player would no longer be supported, and the support for the plugin would be discontinued on most online browsers. This sent the internet off, as so many people were sad to see that the program that basically shaped the internet was shutting down. However, this was all but unexpected. Flash at this point in time was slower and less secure than the more superior content player program, HTML5. In 2017, almost every modern website and browser already made the switch over with support, so Flash just couldn't keep hanging on forever, especially if the security on it was only getting weaker by the years. But what did this announcement mean to Chaz, however? All of his games were made and ran on Flash, which gave him 3 years to update the HTML as the best solution to keep these games running. Fortunately, he actually did, but for only one of the games. And unfortunately for the story, it was not Project Gungame. Instead, Chaz decided to port over bonk.io to HTML, fully aware that his other games were going to die. But he even said himself that there was no intent to try to port over the other games. Now there was just no hope left for Project Gungame. It was just a matter of time slowly ticking away every day before the game would see its last shutdown fate. But if you thought this couldn't get any more worse, Chaz shut down the Project Gungame servers himself, permanently disabling account login and creation alongside it in late 2020. Then after December 31st, 2020, the Tiny Tanks website was updated with a message, simply saying that the game was now dead and a link to the bonk.io HTML page. Project Gungame's website page completely died, and to this day if you go to it, it's simply just a 404 error screen. Besides the fact that the game was dying, there have been a handful of theories as to why Chaz decided to pull the plug on Gungame months early. The most accepted theory is that hackers since the final update kept plaguing the game as they were very common to run into, especially in 2020 with the game's status. It's known that Chaz was sick with dealing with constant hackers in the game, so he probably decided to shut it down for good. So then now, this concludes the history of Project Gungame. Or does it? On December 6, 2019, a new Discord server called Project Gungame Veterans was created. This would become the main grounds for the development of the Project Gungame Remake. The remake's idea was created on the idea of taking the original game, converting it to a newer engine, and also remastering the graphics as well as adding new content such as weapons and equipment. I was actually able to get a short interview with basically Bob, the leader and helper of the remake development team. My first question was how he came up with the idea of the remake. In his response he said, "Well, it all started on an old upload of Project Gungame music. I got incredibly nostalgic that day and decided to look for PGG music. While listening to it, I looked down in the comments and found a long thread of comments about a PGG veteran server, and I was intrigued to join it. I joined the thread of comments and eventually got a new working invite to the server, and had joined through it, meeting lots of new people. I think I had predated the arrival of the most famous person in the server, just one number 7, who followed suit in only a few hours of my arrival. Since I was feeling nostalgic, I went back to the original page of the game, and had gone on it to try and play it, and had realized that it was barely functioning. So I went to the Discord, asked what happened and asked if anyone had heard or known Chaz, and sadly nobody knew the real answers to either of those questions. I got angry and sad about it not working, so I was racking my brain on how we would contact Chaz, and in the heat of the moment I thought up a brilliant idea. Since I had music and programming knowledge, just one number 7 had musical talents, Sonic Eye was good with music programming and he helped me dig through all the files, and many more talented people under our belt. I had come up with the idea to make our own remake for the game. That's how everything happened. For my second question, I asked what everyone wants to know about the remake. When is it expected to be done? Bob replied, "So far, the development has gone decently far. Not yet completely playable, but we got in lots of graphics and music done. It's mainly the programming that has to be finished. Sadly, now that I don't 100% work and follow the remake anymore, I can't really give you the best and most reliable information. To answer your second question, I'd like to think that it will come out mid-2022. At least I hope it will. Things will be going a lot faster and smoother when I get back to this project." The final big question I could really ask Bob is if he had anything else to say for Project Gungame fans eagerly waiting for the remake. In response, he said, "We're adding the missing arrow. By that I mean the ones used for roller coasters and stuff. If you don't know what this means, then he's basically referring to a down arrow, which was missing from its arrows in the original game." Personally, I'm very excited for the remake, and while it may take some time before we'll get a playable launch, the devs are working hard for it, and the team is always looking for new staff. The story of Project Gungame is not over yet. as one of its most important landmarks is yet to arrive. The original game might have had an unfortunate ending, but like every other topic on this series, it's about the legacy and torches being carried that matters the most. Project Gungame, like so many other passionate communities, show that if people love a game enough, they will push for it to live on in any way they can. And really, it's one of the most beautiful things you could see in a community for franchises that are long discontinued by its creators, even if it is a niche multiplayer game from the later stages of Flash.